All right, welcome back for day 2. We're going to learn a little bit more about circles. We're going to learn how to graph them and show how to find their radius if I'm given 2 points. So first, we're just going to start with basics of writing the equation like we did yesterday. So we see that we have the center of the circles at the origin, and I have a point of 0, 4. So I need to determine what the radius is, because remember, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So I have this information, I have this information, but I'm looking for this information. So that's my goal, is to find it in order to write it. Well, if I do remember my distance formula, which if I don't, I'm going to write it. We talked about this back in chapter 2 when we did our when we did our proving our parallelograms for parallelograms and proving our sides equal. So that was x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, all quantities square rooted, where x1, y1 were a first point and x2, y2 were a second point. So essentially all this is saying is the second x value, where's my mouse? Well, there. My second x value minus my first x value squared plus my second y value minus my first y value squared. And then you add those guys together and then you square root it. So if I'm centered at the origin, remember the origin is the point 0, 0. So we always go from the center outside. So my center will be considered my x1 and my y1. My other point will be my x2, my y2, because we always work inside out. So my second x value, which is 0, minus my first value, which is 0, not a parenthesis, squared, plus my second y value, which is 4, minus my first y value, which is 0, squared. 0 minus 0 is 0, 0 squared is 0, so there's nothing. 4 minus 0 is 4, 4 squared is 16, so I have the square root of 16, which is 4. So my radius value is 4. So to create my equation, here's my mouse, I go back and I see I'm centered at the origin, which is the point 0, 0. And if I plug in 0 here, remember we discussed this in our last video, anything plus or minus 0 is just itself, so it disappears. So it's x squared plus y squared is equal to 16. All right, we're centered at the origin again. So that is the point 0, 0. That's my x1, my y1. And I'm going to the point -2, 3, which is my x2, y2. So I take my my second x, which is -2, minus my first x, which is 0 squared, plus 3 minus 0 squared. -2 minus 0 is -2. -2 times -2 is 4. 3 minus 0 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 plus 9 is 13. And I get my radius is equal to the square root of 13. But if I think in my head, hey, I never actually use the single version, I use the squared version, my answer is x squared plus y squared equals 13. Because I'd have to square that square root. Square and a square root cancel each other out, so I'm just left with 13. Centered at the point 2, 1, and it goes through the point 6, 4. Now, the last couple times have been pretty easy peasy because my center has been 0, 0. Same process, just I won't have x squared plus y squared this time because my center is at a different point. So I have the square root of 6 minus 2 plus 4 minus 1. 6 minus 2 is 4. And I'm going to go ahead and write this step so we, it's a little bit more work intensive. I'd have more than just zeros. That way we don't forget where any of my numbers came from. I get 16 plus 9, which gives me 25. So I have x minus 2 squared plus y minus 1 squared. Square root of 25 is 5. So my radius squared is 25. All right, I want you to try this one. I think we're getting close to the end. Yeah, I want you to try this one. Come back, see what you get. Now you're probably thinking, how on earth did she get that A with no work? B, how did she get 25 and not a negative number? Well, if you go back to your steps, you have your 2 minus 6. We're just going to talk about this first part. Your 2 minus 6 quantity squared. So you have 2 minus 6, which is negative 4, but then you have negative 4 times negative 4. It's not negative 4 to the second. If you don't plug this into your calculator without parentheses, if you just hit this, what it's going to do is it's going to square the 4 and then multiply it by negative 1. Whereas I want negative 4 times negative 4. That's probably why you didn't get 25. Rough life, dude. All right, now I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to be given an equation and asked to find the center and the radius. So remember, when I go and look for my center, it's going to be the opposite. So it's going to be 16, negative 9. And then when I do the radius, I'm going to square root that, and the square root of 144 is simply 12. So this center is at negative 8, negative 3, and his radius is 11. Now, we needed to know that information so that we can graph our picture. Now, I'm going to do some brighter colors because they don't tend to stand out as well if I don't. And I'm going to use a bit of a thicker marker so that you can see where I'm plotting. Again, so it stands out properly. So I have to find my center first. So he's at negative 1, 3. So down to the left one, up 3. See, and I still got off a little bit. And then I take my radius, which is 5. I'm going to make that slightly smaller. And I go 5 in the main 4 directions. So up, left, right, and down. And then you're going to get your compass, which I can kind of show you what that'll look like on using this circle formula here. You're going to get your compass and you're going to line your compass up, your dots, the metal part at the center or your origin, and you're going to try and stretch it until you hit this first one of your first dots you've measured, and then you'll move it in a circular form. And you should roughly hit all of your points. And there's your circle. Yes, you're using a compass. Get over it. All right, next one. So my center is at 4, negative 2, and my radius is 7. And I know a couple of these are off the charts, but I think your homework is a lot easier and you don't go as crazy. So my center's there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, I need to go up. 7. I'm going to do it based off the 2. Again, you just need really 1 dot, but I like to do at least 2 so I don't forget where I'm going. And there's my circle. There's your homework.